Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this absolutely freezing cold morning. Wherever you're watching in whatever part of the country, I definitely know that here down in Cork, it has definitely landed into wintertime, which is a little segue into what we'll be talking about today, which is colds, coughs and colds more importantly. So the immune system, a little bit of demystifying around the immune system. I know when I was back studying complementary health, the immune system and the hormonal system to a lesser degree, but the immune system was always a big question mark, mostly because it's harder to have a diagram around. So this morning, I'm just going to basically be chatting a little bit about what is the immune system, because it's quite abstract. Things like the digestive system, we can show a picture. Here's this, here's that, here's what happens in the large intestine, small intestine, etc. So with the immune system, it's a little bit trickier because it's kind of a whole system. So I'm going to be chatting about understanding what it is, the two primary types of immunity. So you have your innate immunity and your adaptive immunity, what those are, what the differences are. We'll have a quick chat around the role of nutrition in all of that, and I'll chat a little bit around lifestyle factors and some supplements that can help boost. Now, we're not big advocates of supplementation by and large here, but there are a few bits that can help. So I'll keep it quite short today. You'll be glad to know. So essentially, as always, if you have any questions, throw them in the old chat section. I do have slides, but I always find something happens with my slides that they don't quite cooperate. But look, I'll pop them up there, and if there's any problems, just shoot me a comment. So your immune system is obviously your body's defense system. It's a network, right? That's the important thing. It's not localized anywhere. There are points of localization where it's more, active, present, etc. But by and large, it's a whole system in and of itself. It's a network of cells, tissues, and organs, like your white blood cells, your lymphatic system, and your gut. So they all work together to protect you from viruses, bacteria, and other pathogens. So there's two primary parts. There's your innate immunity, which is your first line of defense. So that'll be your security guards that will block and attack invaders, and you'll have your adaptive immunity. So that's more specialized parts, right? This aspect remembers previous invaders, and it will create targeted responses like antibodies. So a good example of this for you guys would be histamine. So histamine, my absolute nemesis. That would be something produced in line to known pathogens. So as your body in springtime and early summertime, or if you have a dusty house or something like that, if it's exposed to specific pathogens, it will produce something to help you combat it. Now, sometimes the thing it produces can be problematic in and of itself. So in things like histamine, for example, is we can have a far greater response from what it's producing to try to protect us than perhaps from the thing itself. And this is most evidence when individuals have autoimmune conditions. So one particular one could be, gluten intolerance, for example, or celiac disease. So when there are particular forms of gluten in the system, the body will then have a huge reaction to try to protect from that invader, for want of a better word. So you have your physical barrier first and foremost, like your skin and your mucous membrane. So things like your nose, your throat, they'll all block your germs. Little hairs that come out of the nose, they're there for a reason. They're there to basically be a filtering line of defense. If germs do enter the body, then the immune system responds with a variety of white blood cells, and they'll identify and attack anything that they recognize as foreign. So some white blood cells respond immediately to any invader. So that would be called that innate immunity. While others are part of adaptive immunity. So they learn to recognize specific pathogens and remember them, which is incredible, really, if you think about it. So after you've been exposed to particular viruses or received a vaccine, for example, your immune system can develop antibodies that recognize that germ if it shows up again. So that's the whole basis of vaccinations. So that memory means the immune system can react faster and more effectively the next time that it is posed with a similar pathogen. So it stops you more or less. It stops you from getting, or it helps you to not get sick from the same bug twice in the same way. So you can still have little reactions, but they're not going to be as strong as the initial one you may have had. So it is important to note that if you have a well-functioning immune system, it's in balance. An immune system that's too weak will fail to protect you. Okay, so that's when you're picking up everything. I think of poor primary school teachers around this time of year, Montessori teachers or anything like that. If they have a poor immune system, they will pick up absolutely everything. Now, is it great to have a super, super, super reactive immune system? No. So one that's overreactive will cause problems like allergies, like I've mentioned, that creation of histamine or allergy type responses too often as well, and it can have autoimmune effects. So the goal really is balance where the immune system is concerned. So the nutrition aspect of things, then, of course, it's going to be extremely, extremely important. But actually, I'll touch on that in a second. I'm just going to go back there for a sec to the adaptive. So explaining the common colds, for example, and other seasonal sniffles, I'm terribly prone to I have an overreactive immune system, unfortunately, so do as I say and not as I do, etc. The colds and sniffles and things are usually caused by viruses that infect our airways. Now, how your immune system steps in is at the entry points like your nose and your throat, your body will produce additional mucus that will help to trap viruses. And again, tiny hairs, etc. They're called cilias. They will help your body essentially by being the first line of defense. Now, if some viruses do slip past the initial barriers and they interact with your cell, then your innate immune system kicks in, right? So that's the primary difference. Is you've one that's more first line of defense against skin. If you think, I remember getting really freaked out about this when I was a child. I'm sure we could all remember, or some of us can remember, when we learned there were germs on everything. So your skin is basically the first line of defense with it, and when your innate immune system will kick in next. So the white blood cells in the areas will recognize that a cell has been infected, and it will release chemical signals called cytokines to rally more immune cells and cause inflammation. So I talk about cytokines sometimes because they're basically like your inflammatory markers. So somebody that has lots of cytokines will have lots of inflammation in their body. Sometimes it's to do with their immune system. Sometimes it can show up symptomatically in other ways that are unpleasant. So people that have quite a lot of inflammation in their gut, in their bowel, in their skin, in their joints, all of those, they would have high levels of inflammatory markers or cytokines. So you could also get things like a fever, which is your body's way basically of creating a less less friendly environment, less friendly environment for the infection. So it is your body actively trying to get it out, right? If you think of the infection as needing a very particular set of conditions, not too hot, not too cold, three bears and porridge type of deal happening, your body is trying to basically bring up your temperature so that the infection can't take place properly. So your adaptive then, again, it's learning about your virus. Within a few days of the virus being in place, your B cells, which is a certain type of white blood cell, they might start to produce antibodies specific to the virus. Now, again, this is very much in line with vaccines. So those antibodies will latch onto the virus and it'll help to neutralize it and mark it for destruction, which is great. So after you recover, some of the immune cells will stay in your system as memory cells, which means if you encounter the same virus strain again, your body can respond faster. So it's absolutely incredible. It really, really is. So your immune system defends against coughs and colds by blocking as many germs, first and foremost, attacking those that get in and causing symptoms that will help to purge the infection. Now, you can get immune protection will start to dip, particularly around this time of year, and that's because the winter weather and the dry air will make it. It has low humidity, and when you inhale it, it dries out your nasal passages. And remember, I've mentioned them 2 or 3 times already. Little cilia black. They basically are the thing that's protecting. So the more dry they are, the less they're able to do their job. And the less, which is also why we get mucusy, right? So in this, there's a beautiful theme for today. We produce phlegm as a way to go, okay, this is all dried out, excuse me. So the next line of defense is producing mucus. And then in colder months, there's a human behavioral propensity to huddle, right? We get into our penguin instincts and we huddle to stay warm. There's more, smoking areas in pubs as opposed to being outside. There's more, we're just more close together in proximities where people are already sneezy and mucusy. So when people don't wash their hands, and I know we're all fairly au fait with this now at this stage after the couple of years that we had of it been drummed into us, but washing our hands is a huge part of really, really looking after not spreading any germs throughout our workplaces, friends, etc. So we also have less sunlight, which is super important because vitamin D, of course, is going to help to bring up your immune function. It's one of the things I recommend later on now in the chat. So our ongoing stress will also peel away at our body's ability to counteract any pathogens, because when you're in a high stress environment, your body is going to favor survival rather than optimization. So it will cut away a lot of things that it sees as, look, this isn't super important right now, which is why people's nails and toenails, weirdly enough, slow in growth when they're in hyper stress, hair as well, actually, hyper stress, and when they're chronically ill. That's why these type of things happen. Poor sleep will also have a huge factor into it. Now, coming back, oh, am I frozen? No, I'm not. Coming back into the food bits. There we go. So, food. Why nutrition matters. Now, it's going to be a big giveaway here, but why does it matter? Because you're going to get additional help, right? Your immune system is going to get additional help that it really needs, because it's got a lot of things going on, and any additional help it can get, any support, all the better. So there's not... Be wary. Actually, I'll take this off for a second. Be wary of advertising for superfoods, right? Superfoods have their own economy and trends, etc. And anybody who's bought into, I remember 8 to 10 years ago, coconut oil, right, hit the Irish market pretty hard, which there's nothing wrong with, by the way. But it meant a lot of people that were food investors or health investors bought into coconut products an awful lot. So there was a huge amount of advertising telling people in Ireland about how this food, which is not native, and you can have non-native foods be quite good, but how all of a sudden it was everywhere, right? You know, coconut products took the market by storm. An awful lot of that was down to the fact that investors bulk bought to stay on top of trends and were basically pushing foods. You've the same thing happen in cycles. It was kale before that. Kale. Now, kale is brilliant. You don't want to have kale in everything. There were people, I don't know if I'm going off topic here, but people that poisoned themselves with the amount of kale that they had actually poisoned themselves with it. Insane. But anyway, so you want to be getting a nutrient-rich, balanced diet, obviously enough, but the things that you want to be getting the most of are the building blocks of a healthy immune system. So that old adage, you are what you eat, actually there's something in it. And the foods that we have a tendency to crave that aren't, in my case, donuts or cookies, Subway cookies sometimes. The foods that we have a tendency to crave in specific times of the year can tell us about the nutrients that we're lacking. So huge one that we need in winter time is vitamin C, of course, because vitamin C, huge part of your immune system, vitamin C and vitamin D. Now, your immune cells will rely on that steady supply of vitamins, minerals, proteins, and energy to work properly. So if you focus on a diet that has whole foods, plenty of fruit and vegetables, and adequate proteins and fats, you're winning. So fruits and veggies will give you vitamin C. Things like sweet potatoes and carrots will give you beta carotene, which your body will then convert to vitamin A, which is absolutely brilliant. Nuts and seeds will give you vitamin E and zinc. So all of these nutrients contribute to a very well-functioning immune system. I think I have it in one slide altogether there, actually, do I? Love slides. There we go. Excuse me. So should you be supplementing? That very much depends on yourself, your lifestyle, your access to specific foods, your access to specific time to eat specific foods, cook specific foods, etc. So lots of supplements like vitamin C pills, zinc lozenges, a lot of them are sucky sweets or effervescents. They will be marked as immune boosters. Now, I would strongly advise looking at the ingredients, because what you might find is a very, very tiny amount of vitamin C, a huge amount of sugar, or dextrose, or maltose, or these type of things. And at the end of the day, what you've done is you've basically consumed more sugar than vitamin C. And had you just gone for something like a mixed plate of peppers with hummus, for example, you'd have gotten a lot more vitamin C and no sugar, which would have helped your system a lot more. So they can be super handy, but I would say just check the levels that you're getting versus the sugar that you're getting in. So the difference is whole foods aren't just an isolated nutrient, right? They'll have fiber. They will have what's known as phytonutrients and other compounds that are all going to help your health overall. So if you eat an orange, I know people would say vitamin C equals orange. Vitamin C equals any above ground vegetable that has a color, right? So any colorful plates of foods will usually have quite a lot of vitamin C. Berries are absolute powerhouses for a tiny little bit. I know they're not in season, to be fair. Frozen from fresh is a really good alternative. So they're going to give you an awful lot of other things as well as your vitamin C. So you get more bang for your buck, basically, is what I'm saying. So you're going to have loads of antioxidants, which is going to help your skin. It's going to help your cells. It's going to help your cells to basically not oxidize, which is not good. So you're getting an awful lot more. It's going to help your gut microbiome with the fiber that's in there. So having whole food sources of vitamin C is going to be absolutely much, much better than just getting some of the nutrients in isolation. So vitamin D is the one that I would probably say likely most people in Ireland will need to have a little bit more in there. Now, don't go mental and have loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of the highest grade vitamin D that you can find, because with the body, more is not always amazing. Our little body can only take so much of things, but that's just a vague warning for those that will get the strongest one and absolutely go mental with it, which is 1 in 1,000, but I just will say it just in case. So vitamin D in the Northern Hemisphere, most people will need. It is the sunshine vitamin for a reason. We don't get an awful lot of sunshine. That is just how it is. You also need far more than just your face exposed to get vitamin D. So anywhere that our skin is exposed quite a bit, our faces, the bottom of our arms and our chest, the top of our chest, our skin's a little bit thicker. Whereas the bits that aren't exposed, like our wrists, our abdomen, the skin is not as thick. So they're usually the parts that you need exposed to a good blast of sun to actually retain the vitamin D. Also, most people wear sunscreen, even in the Northern Hemisphere, even in winter. So there's already another barrier happening there. Now, whether you choose to do that or not is entirely up to you, but I'm just pointing out that most of the time we don't really have enough of it. So it is really essential for bone health. So if you have osteopenia, osteoporosis, are worried about bone health, that there's bone health problems in the family, great one to have. It's going to be a key driver in your body's immune function. Excuse me. Vitamin D actually acts way more like a hormone than it does a vitamin, because, excuse me, hormones are messengers. So they're always talking to each other. They have roles. They're carrying a message. Vitamins don't really, but vitamin D does. And for anybody who has high blood sugars, anyone going through the menopause, anyone that is under hormonal duress, vitamin D is going to be excellent, because the other thing it does is it helps to support the messages being sent adequately. So it's a really, really good one to have in the back pocket going into wintertime. So the guidelines around vitamin D are about 600 to 800 IU minimum, right? So that's 15 to 20 micrograms. Usually a mid-range vitamin D is enough for most people, unless they have any other additional needs for vitamin D. Another one actually for vitamin D that would need extra would be fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and some autoimmune conditions. So usually it's not a bad shout to start to bring in. Now, the other bits are going to be fairly self-explanatory. Oops, there we go. Food and sleep. I mean, hydration and sleep, the old chestnuts. So it's extremely important for your immune system to function, to actually get adequate sleep. I know that's difficult for people depending on, what's feasible in your own life, but good hydration